Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're unpacking something that feels like it's literally ripped out of a political thriller. It's this incredibly bizarre, really tense moment that happened on a presidential tarmac overseas. And what's wild is that it exposes a massive, gaping hole in what modern journalism actually prioritizes. We're going to look at how this intense obsession with aesthetics, political optics, completely blinded the media to a literal life-or-death situation going on right under, or actually right outside their noses. So just picture this for a second. A group of reporters is sitting on a presidential aircraft, parked on a tarmac in Turkey. The wheels haven't even left the ground yet, right? And suddenly, they're hit with this highly unusual, almost unprecedented command. Close your window shades. Just shut them. Now, you might be wondering, why on earth would the flight crew ask the press to literally blind themselves to the outside world right before takeoff? Well, to grasp the sheer gravity of that moment, we really have to look at the aircraft itself. Because this whole story, it actually kicks off with a tale of two very, very different airplanes.
Section 1. The Tale of Two Planes. Aesthetics versus Reality.
Check out the stark contrast between these two aircraft. On one hand, you have what the source calls the Flying Palace. This thing is a brand new plane gifted by Qatar. It's decked out with gleaming gold trim and this bold red, white, and blue paint job. And the media? They spent an entire year just obsessing over it. They argued about its status as a gift, its billion-dollar price tag, and how much the president loves showing it off. But then, on the other hand, you have the classic jet. This is the older, baby blue plane featuring that iconic design originally picked out by Jackie Kennedy. The press had been relentlessly criticizing this older plane, basically brushing it off as this outdated, ugly relic. But as we're going to see, the media's absolute fixation on the shiny exterior of the new plane caused them to completely miss what actually matters when you're flying a world leader across the globe.
Moving on to the next part, the hidden reality and what lies beneath the paint.
So, that ugly old baby blue jet? Turns out it's a literal flying fortress. It is packed with decades of highly classified engineering, and it's built for exactly one job: surviving hostile air. Think about it. It has missile warning sensors constantly scanning the sky for the heat signature of an incoming warhead. It's got electronic countermeasures designed to literally blind whatever hostile projectile might be chasing it. Plus, there's EMP shielding built right into the frame so the plane can keep flying straight through a nuclear blast. Oh, and hardened communications to guarantee secure lines that absolutely nobody can tap into. Basically, this older jet was designed to get the president home safely, no matter what nightmare scenario unfolds in the sky.
But here is the jaw-dropping reality. That gorgeous new flying palace, the one with the gold trim the press wouldn't shut up about, it doesn't have any of this defensive armor. None of it. According to the source material, the retrofit for that new plane was rushed. I mean, incredibly rushed. Instead of taking the years and years it normally takes to install these incredibly complex defense systems, they squeezed it into mere months. One former intelligence official even noted that this new plane just wasn't ready for prime time overseas. It was completely devoid of these life-saving defense systems.
Which brings us to the geopolitical threat, focusing on Turkey, Iran, and the kill list. 800. That's the number of miles that drones and ballistic missiles in Iran's inventory can easily reach. And quick geography check, who does Turkey share a border with? Exactly, Iran. That means this specific airport in Turkey, where that beautiful, completely unarmored new plane was just sitting, was parked directly inside the 800-mile threat ring of a major adversary. And you have to understand the background here. During this tarmac delay, the tension was severe, and it was escalating fast. Let's look at the timeline. Just months prior to this incident, the US and Israel carried out a strike against a top Iranian security chief, which actually prompted the regime to go on television and promise retaliation. Then, fast forward to the spring, an Iranian operative was convicted in an American courtroom for a murder-for-hire plot. And that brings us right to the present day of this flight. The President of the United States had openly acknowledged he was #1 on Iran's kill list. So we're talking about incredibly real, highly credible threats just swirling in the background, while this plane was sitting there like a sitting duck on the runway. Now, the source makes a really careful, honestly terrifying distinction here. A military strike involves uniformed forces operating under a flag following a chain of command in broad daylight during a war. But an assassination, that's murder in the dark. It's a hired hand without a uniform. It could just be a rogue operative pointing a rocket at the sky in Turkey. The source points out that civilization has spent centuries building these walls between a soldier and an assassin, because the reality is, if a nation's leadership becomes a target for off-the-books assassination, the very rules of warfare just begin to completely unravel.
Now for the twist. Let's look at
the unarmored decoy, and a terrifying realization. So, keeping all of that danger and geopolitical tension in the back of your mind, let's bring it back to those reporters. They're sitting on this unarmored plane in Turkey, being told to put their window shades down. Well, here is the chilling realization of this entire explainer. The president wasn't even on the plane with the reporters. Nope. The most protected human being alive required the heavy, decades-old armor of that classic blue jet to actually survive that hostile airspace. He flew home on the ugly armored plane. The reporters, meanwhile, they were just sitting on the unarmored, shiny new jet right on Iran's front door. And that is exactly why the window shades came down.
Oh, and what happened to that gorgeous flying palace? The one the media spent months scrutinizing? It was actually sent 2,500 miles away to England. It was flown perfectly safe, completely empty of the president, well past the reach of Iran's front door. That beautiful plane was essentially just the decoy. It was kept entirely out of harm's way, while the real gritty work of survival was handed right back over to the armored workhorse. Which leads us to our final section, questioning journalistic priorities and missing the real story.
Think about this. For an entire year, journalists completely obsessed over superficial aesthetics. I mean, they debated Tiffany blue pink colors, they criticized gold trim details, they endlessly analyzed the billion-dollar price tag, whether the plane was a foreign gift, and what it all meant for the personality of the president. They were entirely focused on the shiny object. And while they were arguing about paint, they ended up sitting in an unarmored plane in a hostile zone, being told to lower their shades because of an active threat they had completely ignored.
The source issues this harsh, incredibly clarifying reality check aimed directly at those reporters. Quote, "Nobody's going to care what color it was. Nobody's going to remember your death." It hits hard, right? Because when a missile sensor is literally the only thing standing between you and disaster, political optics become violently irrelevant.
So I want to leave you with this question. When you consume the news, how often are we being fed stories about paint colors and political drama instead of the missile sensors and the structural realities of the world? This tarmac incident is a brilliant, terrifying reminder that those reporters were told to close their window shades because, metaphorically, they were already flying blind. They chose aesthetics over tangible safety. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning what lies beneath the paint.